Let's talk Tanya for the 3rd of Tishrei. In today's Tanya, we conclude chapter 19 of Igeres HaKodesh. Interestingly, however, this passage, the conclusion of this chapter, is not part of the original letter or thesis which constitutes the most of this letter. It was added later on by the editors of Tanya because the idea that the Alter Rebbe writes about over here further illustrates that which we spoke about in the Tanya of the previous days. In the Tanya of the previous days, we talked about the Torah and how the Torah that we have is merely the external dimension of Torah. That is what was revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu prophetically, the action parts of Torah, whereas the internal parts of Torah remains hidden. Some of it we can understand, some of it we can't understand, but ultimately it remains hidden. And this is an expression of a Kabbalistic axiom, and in Hebrew it is that the Nehim of the Elyon becomes the Moichin of the Tachton, which means that the lower levels, the Netzach Choid Yesoid Malchus, the lower levels, the lower attributes of the higher level, becomes the Moichin, which is the intellect or the more internal aspect of the lower level. And Alter Rebbe explains, he gives an example over here from words. We know that words exist both in thought and in speech. Obviously, words exist in speech because we speak using words, but we also think using our words. And in fact, the words that we think, they become the words that we speak. They are the source of the words that we speak. So whenever we are speaking, we're thinking, and those words in our mind translate and become the words that we speak. However, as we all know very well, sometimes we speak without thinking. Some of us do it more than others, but all of us do it sometimes when there's certain things that we say by rote. You bump into someone and say, "Hi, how are you doing?" There were no words in your mind necessarily at that moment. This is something which we just say because we're used to saying it. Someone hands you something, you say thank you. Some of us will make a bracha without thinking what we're saying. So those words, where do they come from? If they don't come from the words in the mind, where do they come from? And the answer is they also come from the words in the mind, even though they're not there right now, but because I thought these words many times before. So the shell of these words, or a residue of them, remain in my mind, and these words now become that residue or that shell of the words in my mind, they become the core and the essence and the life force behind the words that I'm speaking right now, which is similar to this idea that the lower level of the higher level then becomes the core and the essence of the lower level, which is the same thing which happens with Torah. That yes, originally the Torah that we have is the lower dimension of God's Torah, but ultimately, as it is revealed to us, that then becomes the core of our Torah, and that is what we learn, we study, and that which we do. With this, we've concluded chapter 19 of Igeres HaKodesh. Tomorrow we start chapter 20. It's going to be an interesting journey. We are going to be talking about some of the deepest secrets and mysteries of creation, and that'll all begin in tomorrow's Tanya.